So we are getting on with this afternoon. You've got me for the next hour or so with two different sessions. So I'm really delighted to be here with Stuart Gillies, who is the CEO of Gordon Ramsay Group. And then after that, we're going to be doing a session looking at investment and how investors can add value to your business. But I'll start off to introduce Stuart very briefly. I'm sure he'll do a much better job of it than me, and will be an exciting person to be able to talk through for the next half an hour. But of course, we don't really need to introduce the name Gordon Ramsay, one of the world's most famous chefs. But in recent years, there's been a real change in the strategy of Gordon Ramsay Group, and Stuart's really the man behind that change. 15 restaurants in the UK and 16 international now, and joined in 2003, worked the way through as being managing director and then into the CEO role. And what's it like to work with one of the most prevalent chefs in the world?
Well, good afternoon, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. So, for me, it's great. I love working with Gordon because we have a great dynamic, we have a great relationship, and I probably deal with the modern Gordon, which is the businessman who listens and is a partner working for a team of people. So I think it's challenging in that there's a very high level of ambition, and there's a level of ambition that is now, but you just manage that process and you work with a team who ultimately like to be challenged and driven by that intensity and that passion.
And you were saying that just now your partnership's really being tested to the fore at this very minute, is that right?
Yeah, it's the ultimate partnership because Gordon's currently my babysitter with my kids. So I've got a couple of my kids here. Gordon happens to be here, so he said, I'll take the kids for you. So for me, that's just a natural thing with Gordon, but I think it's testament to our relationship that there is a very serious business side that's very focused on quality, integrity, strategy, and then there's a side which is much more human. There's a connection there, which ultimately I think you need to have in any good partnership anyway. It can't just be business and numbers. There needs to be something which is connected to help you, I think, listen and make decisions.
I think in this sector that's more prevalent than any other in a way, isn't it? We're all very passionate people, and that's partly what it's about.
I think it's the modern version of the industry. We pinch ourselves that we're born in this era where food and hospitality and restaurants has become the new lifestyle accessory of the global market. So we're so lucky to be in this time, and we never forget that. So we love the fact that it's changed and it's more competitive than ever, and everyone loves going out and eating and drinking and just enjoying restaurants or hospitality because it's just become part of a lifestyle. So we love that, and so yeah, I think it's more relevant than ever because it has to be so authentic, what you do now and the delivery, because it's so transparent for the customer that you can't just deliver a square linear product anymore. There has to be so much more to it because everybody wants value for money, no matter what level you're at. And we have a very diverse range of restaurants, everything from a 3-star Michelin for 15 years in London to a burger bar in Vegas, to a pub on the Thames in London. So we've got enormous diversity, but we don't treat them any differently from a people perspective, from a culture perspective. We still engage and have everyone buy into the philosophy of why we do that.
And if we come back to your own career, you started as a chef, and one of those chefs that can count. You've really driven your way through into this role. How has that come about?
So it wasn't planned. I was quite happy being a chef partner. And then 7 years ago, Gordon and I had a conversation, and Gordon asked me if I'd like to take over. I said, no, I'm very happy, thanks. I'm not qualified for the role, which he disagreed with. I said, well, I think you are qualified because you know the business and you know restaurants. So we agreed that we would change the dynamic, we'd strip it back, and we'd build a platform that was ready for the next 20 years. It was perfect timing because the world had changed anyway. 2008, 9, 10. It was completely different. Everyone's expectations were different. And I think London was going through a huge era of pop-ups and no-booking style restaurants, which was fantastic because it gave all these independents and people with no resource or background or finance, really. It gave them an opportunity to test out concepts. So I think that was a brilliant era that drove London to be really, really quite creative and have a better appetite for risk. So that was great timing for us because it meant we could then get on with our housekeeping and changing the evolution of the company from being a really well-known, fine dining, immaculate brand that had been through expansion and had faced a lot of challenges with that, like many companies. So it was a great time to draw a line, stop, review what the market wanted, where the market was going, what the audience wanted. I think your gentleman from Michelin earlier on mentioned that you've got to listen to your customers, and it's exactly what you've got to do. If you listen and you really think and you engage, they will direct you into really what the market wants in that sector or hotel or environment. So, long answer to your question, sorry. So, my background, I was a chef for 30 years, very happy chef, worked around the world, and I'd always loved produce-led cooking, atmosphere. I'd worked in Scandinavia, Italy, New York with Danielle and the like. So I'd worked for some great hospitality people, and my personal love of the business was atmosphere and produce. So it was a great partnership together because Gordon was focused on immaculate intensity and delivery and perfection, and mine was a little bit more random, and it was a bit more chaotic. So it added a lot more colour, I think, to the mix. So I took over in 2011.
You said at that time that you saw the need to change. Being within the business, that might have been easier, but at that point, what is it that made you realise, wow, things have got to change?
I think when you have a really successful company, I think you build up a huge amount of loyalty, especially with such an enormous brand and an individual like Gordon. So you build up a massive amount of loyalty, but sometimes that loyalty is quite one-dimensional, and they've lived in an era where they want to be the owner, entrepreneur. That wasn't my mission. I just loved restaurants and chaos and noise and atmosphere. So a lot of the people who were within the infrastructure, they didn't embrace that style of restaurants and hospitality, and that's where the world was going. Everyone wanted the same quality, immaculate, good provenance of ingredients, brilliant delivery, great atmosphere, but they also wanted it to be quite easy and accessible. They didn't have to dress always for a great experience. They didn't want to have to book it 3 months ahead. They just wanted to drop in. So we generally used that style of engagement with all our teams to create an immaculate experience, however the delivery was. So the producers are the same, and a lot of the ingredients are identical in all our businesses, but the delivery is completely different. The delivery and the price point and the experience, it's completely different because the same customers want different experiences. So sometimes people say to me, well, you have a different customer for a 3-star restaurant, you have a different customer for the burger, but it's not true. They're the same customers. They're just in a different space because everyone eats out so often these days. So I don't think we don't think it's right to focus on a customer for a business. There's an experience in that business, and it needs to deliver to the max, and it needs to deliver amazing quality. And something like our Bread Street Kitchen concept is something where we combined all those elements, it's multi-layered, it's multifaceted, it's experiential. It's not about the food, it's not just about the cocktails, it's not about the design, it's about every element. And whatever mood you're in or whatever you're looking for, it exists there. And that way we build up the trust with the customer. And that's the most important thing for us, is that trust. Because once you have the trust, then you can just keep on building that relationship.
And with that, and based on you guys taking a very different approach, it must have been quite difficult to begin with, having quite a kind of food-centered and maybe quite, maybe quite one-dimensional viewpoint on what needed to be delivered. How did you come to broaden that out?
Well, you can't be brilliant at everything. I think you've got to know what you're good at and be honest about maybe what you're not so good at. So then you recruit great people, but you can't recruit an amazing team unless they want to come to you. You can't just offer the biggest salaries or promise the world. You have to create an environment where they really think they can come and be something where they add value. So I think there was an enormous era of 90s and early noughties where it was the era of the chef, as we call it. So it was the chef. The chef was all powerful, and the chef was dragging all the restaurants in, and they were doing the PR, and it was all about the food. But then that changed. 2008, 2009, it stopped, and it became more about the whole team, the experience. So we moved away from the focus being on the chef. It was all about the experience, and it was all about people just enjoying all the elements. So you need a whole collection of different people, but in order to entice them in, you need to create an environment where they really feel like they are going to be developed, so they can be challenged, because these are professional people who share dedication. So they're completely focused. And they don't all want to work 80, 90 hours a week, and they don't need to. But what they want to do is be part of something that they really enjoy. So we create an environment where they can really perform really well in their sweet spot, and where they can really be part of something that just grows. And once you have that traction and you have the energy of the team driving it, it's the most powerful style of delivery and concept you can get, because it's not a vertical management system, it's horizontal. Everyone's part of that decision-making process, and they engage in making it better. And so everyone has a voice, and they can grow together. And that's far more powerful. So we don't police our businesses. We don't do that. Many years ago when I first took over, we changed the name of head office to support office. That was a really big change. It wasn't popular at head office. They did not like that change in name, but it was a really big thing to do, because the office wasn't running the company and the business. It was supporting the restaurants, which were the revenue centres. So that was a really big cultural shift, and we just continued that through all the layers of the business.
And taking that one step further, how involved is Gordon in that? And is it difficult at times to kind of make sure that it's your vision and you're still driving forward with having such a powerful presence?
So I don't think it's my vision. I think it's our vision. I think we have some really fantastic people on board. So we made a point of recruiting really good people who were really smart. So there's lots of really smart people working in our business and make a lot of really good decisions. So Gordon's involved in that he's got vision over the business, but he doesn't make decisions day to day. Ultimately, I'll make decisions, and the buck stops with me, because I'm the CEO. So I'll make the decisions, but most of the time I don't need to make the decision. The team will collectively find a solution, and we'll agree on that solution. And it also makes them feel a bit more empowered. It makes them feel that they are really valued and listened to. So Gordon has an opinion on everything. You can't not let Gordon have an opinion, not because he's the owner, but he's a brilliant chef who's been there and done it. He's achieved 3 stars in a really tough era, and he's also been a great restaurateur. And he's also an inspirational character. I mean, for people, you love him or hate him, he's an inspiring individual through many, many things. And whether it's the F&B history of restaurants and everything that they represent, or whether it's the new world of media and shows and development, Gordon's an inspirational character. So we've created an environment where Gordon can feed into that, and it doesn't freak everyone out, it doesn't damage it. It's just really good input. And we take that, and it's filtered with everything else, and we consider it. And collectively, we make the best decisions, we think, for the business.
So it is all about the business, because I think it'd be very easy to perceive that, from all the TV appearances and everything else, there's a big bucket of cash there, and maybe commercial's not the most important thing to you guys?
No, I don't think it's that. The integrity of what we do as a restaurant, that's the most important thing. But there has to be a commercial conversation as well. So you might have 2 things that are constantly the yin and the yang, which is the artist and the bank. The artist wants to make it amazing and spend loads of money and just do dazzling things, and the bank's going to say, no, you can't spend that. This is your budget. This is your forecast. So the 2 do have to work in tangent, and you have to rationalise everything and thrash it out at operator level, and then you discuss it at board level. So we have a very senior board. There's 8 of us on the board, and we discuss things. We meet monthly, and we discuss all these things in quite intense detail, so that it goes all the way through the process and all the way back. So that way, I think we know, you could say the left and the right hand know what they're doing. We know exactly what's going on, and we're very transparent with our detail and our figures, which was an interesting thing recently with our business in France. So we have 2 restaurants in France, and we have 2 restaurants in Bordeaux. One just got its 2nd star Michelin there. So we had a chat with the ownership about sharing the detail with the chefs and the team, and they'd never done that before. They'd never shared all the detail. So we explained that we share the P&Ls top to bottom with our teams, that it's not about hiding the profit. It's about showing them the reality of what it takes to run a business, because all hospitality businesses are incredibly difficult, and your margins are really tough. So if you're really good at what you do, as generally everyone at these levels will be, then you can make some good profits, but it's incredibly hard. So the more you share that detail and the more you bring your teams into that shared sense of purpose and that drive to achieve great things, then that's really important.
You touched on France a moment ago. When we think about the international side of your business, it's not managed in the same way as your business in Britain. Are you able to touch on the relationships you have with people and how that works?
Yeah, so we have a simple model currently, which has been it's been a strategic and reactive model, which has changed the business and evolved it to being what we feel is a modern collection of restaurants, which are all independent. So we're a group, but we don't think of it as a group from a restaurant perspective. They're all individual, autonomously run businesses that have this invisible mechanism called support office that supports them more or less depending on the experience of the team. So there's no template for that. We judge it, and then we support them or educate them or just facilitate what they need depending on the experience of the team. So London, we own everything, and it's all leased, and we own that business, and we run it with a team that's our core estate in London, and that's our shop window for the world. So everything we do in London, we're very focused, we invest heavily, and that's our speech point. That's where we communicate with the world and show what we do as an operator. And then we have our international models that are all partnerships. So they're all license arrangements, management deals, and generally we choose those partnerships based on relationship. So when we have the negotiations with the partners, there's completely different commercial terms for each, depending on their financial situation or we feel their ability to meet our commercial terms. And we don't have a cookie-cutter concept that we work with them. So I mentioned Bread Street Kitchen earlier, which is the first scalable concept that we've had that we're driving quite hard now. So we have 6 sites internationally, and we adapt it for each site. So Singapore Bread Street Kitchen is slightly different to Hong Kong, which is slightly different to Dubai, which is different to the 2 in London, which is slightly different to Sanya in China, which opens this year. Because we adapt it 15-20% accordingly to suit the operator and us. And then we run it together. So we are heavily involved. We have sign-off of all the elements. And we send a team out regularly. We have an international team who drop in unannounced sometimes, or they just work with the partner on a regular basis. And then from London, from the core estate, they track the daily logbooks and the reports, so they see the financials and the operating systems on a daily basis. And then they track social media daily. And we use a system called Avero, which is a US system that we use everywhere. And our teams then have enormous access to data and analysis and figures that gives them fantastic management tools. So they know when there's a problem the same time we do. And it's not about pointing out who's to blame, it's about fixing the problem. So if they're not skilled enough or trained enough and they're making mistakes, that's our fault. We are responsible. I think we have to hold our hand up and say we're to blame for that. So we continually interrogate how good we are at developing our teams to be brilliant restaurateurs. And the level of talent we get, it works fantastic for us in our model.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that I found most interesting when we spoke before this was the decision and the kind of drive that you made around the Savoy Grill to kind of take the Gordon Ramsay name off the front door as such before you opened. Do you want to talk through that decision and how that's been important to your strategy?
Well, I think it was a change of an era. So there was a really successful company that was run by a management team, and that management team, their strategic plan was brand it all Gordon, and people will come. But myself and Gordon had a different view that it made the team rely on the brand. So if it wasn't busy, it wasn't their fault. It was the brand's fault. And they would just wait. And there was a lot of reactive process in the company that was just waiting for business to drop in because of the brand. And it was no fault of theirs exactly, because that era of 2000 to 2006 was so incredibly wealthy in London. There was so much business. Places were just charging whatever for groups and events, in restaurants. It was such an era of people just spending, that they all became quite slow and lazy with that. So our view was very different. So when it was one of my last concepts that I launched was Savoy Grill. And when we talked about the concept, Gordon and I agreed it would be the Savoy Grill, because you can't put a name on it because nothing's bigger than the Savoy Grill. It's just the grill. It's been there 130 years. How could any name be bigger than that? Whereas the management team thought it should be called the Savoy Grill by Gordon Ramsay, which I remember was a big debate at the time, but it was a real defining moment because that was the start of us creating a portfolio that wasn't reliant on the brand. It was influenced by the brand, and it was hugely enhanced by the brand if we chose to use that. But ultimately, the Bread Street Kitchen, the Union Square Cafe, the London House, all these concepts were unbranded and individual, and they just stood for what they did, which was the offering that they delivered in that venue. So there was no confusion. They weren't confused by Gordon's role, and they weren't confused by what they were there to do. They were just restaurants, and they were there to do the best job they could, and they were there to deliver to the max day in, day out. And then when we choose, we dial in Gordon or up more or less, which adds enormous marketing and PR power if we feel we need it, or enhances the quality. So from our perspective, it's a luxury to have that. And we have spent a lot of years individualizing the collection of food and beverage in the group. So the Gordon Ramsay group is a collection of restaurants, 31 as you say, and it's a food and beverage business, and that is what it does. It's not confused, it doesn't do anything else, it's just a food and beverage business. And Gordon's a part of that as a restaurateur and a chef with 30 years experience. I mean, fantastic. And then you've got a media business, which is completely separate. And that's an audience of 450 million. It's Gordon, it's TV, it's everything he does. But we choose then to use that either to enhance the food and beverage business if we feel it's appropriate, or we use the food and beverage business to help create content or be creative for the media business. And it's a brilliant partnership these days.
I'm sure everyone out there in the audience is also wondering in terms of how you're funded. Is it privately held, or have you got VC backing? What's the scenario there?
So it's an interesting question. The easy answer is we're privately funded. We're not private equity or venture capitalist backed. We've been through the process, which was really educational for me as a humble chef for many years. So that process of 18 months to go through a private equity journey was a revelation, and it almost killed me. It was really painful because we were nowhere near ready, and we were quite sharply told that by the private equity companies. And there were some great people in there, but they have an agenda and they have a mission and they're looking for their exit. So we learned a lot through that process. We learned how unmarket ready we were, and we learned how almost small restaurant mentality we were. But it did all our housekeeping. It did a brilliant job. The due diligence process for us was fantastic because it cleaned up our whole structure of reconciliation, accounting, everything. So it put in place a brilliant modern system that was almost a nice financial model that was attractive to private equity, but it still looked like a handmade restaurant group. So for us, it was an amazing process, and I don't think we would have learned as much if we hadn't have been through that very expensive, painful journey.
All good fun, I'm sure.
Yeah, didn't feel like fun. It was tough because you're defending something you really love. When they say, which one are you going to take? You say, well, they're all good. They're all amazing. But again, that was a big wake up. And so from that, we woke up. We thought, well, Bread Street Kitchen. It's an obvious one. It's good to go. There's lots of interest. It ticks all the boxes. It does exactly what everyone wants from a concept these days. It doesn't try to be anything it's not. And it's hitting a brilliant price point at every level. So you can really spend big or you can spend low. And we have no issue with that. And it's quick turn. So I think things like that were great educational tools for us. And we certainly weren't the smartest on the block when we started it. We had a big reputation, a big brand. But we're quick learners and we're sponges and we do soak it up. And we're not too proud to say, yeah, we didn't know and we made a mistake. We really learnt a lot there because we love the industry and we love industry in whatever form it takes. So whatever that restaurant looks like, we love it because it's food and eating out and it's hospitality. We love that. And so we want to be part of that. But we bring in people each time for each individual style or identity. We bring in people who are really good at that. And we work with them, we cut them loose, and we just make sure they're incredibly well trained and supported.
That's great. I think we did very well at getting the 90-minute breakfast we had down to under 30 minutes in a condensed version. But I do want to open up to a couple of questions from the audience. Is there anyone there who'd like to ask Stuart a question? I've got one gentleman over here.
Well, that's an interesting question. I think it will probably depend on the PE partner.
But are you PE ready? So you're looking for an exit?
So Bread Street Kitchen is a great concept that's been modelled to be tidy, and I think easy to understand, which was the big learning we took from private equity. It needs to be uncomplicated, and you know where it's going for the next 5 years. So Bread Street Kitchen is our model that we have sculpted to be like that, yes.
Hopefully the next session will prove the kind of investors that can help you along a journey, rather than making that process particularly hard. But nice move.
I think it was our doing, actually.
Oh,
I think
really?
we made it hard on ourselves.
Oh, there we go.
Just because we weren't ready for it. So, we survived it. So if you come through it, it definitely makes you stronger, and a bit more educated, maybe.
Great. Is there any more questions at all? Sure, we've got one more out there somewhere. Someone with a dying question. No?
We must have really covered it all.
There we go.
That's
It's all
good.
ticked off. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Enjoy the next couple of days.
Thank you. Thanks, Simon.